Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank, and I was going to shoot a before and after video tonight with water change and a little bit of basic maintenance on it, but I decided that we would just go ahead and shoot a video after and talk about the tank a little bit. No need to worry about what it looked like beforehand. The water was really tannin stained, the glass had a lot of algae growing on it, and the water level was about 2 inches down from where you see it now. And that's about all there really is to talk about. No big deal. So what I do want to talk about is the nitrate levels in the tank and the Chemiclean treatment that we're doing. First of all, with the nitrate levels, I wanted to keep an eye on them simply because I've put a lot of sand in this tank and I'm trying to get a little bit of a deep sand bed situation going. I don't know if it's going to be successful because I have such a shallow version of a deep sand bed. I think it needs to be probably a minimum of about 4 inches, and I'm nowhere near that. So it's just kind of an experiment to see if we can get at least a little bit of a reduction in nitrates. So when I do water changes on this tank, I've been kind of keeping an eye on them, and I don't know what to make of it so far. I'm not really seeing anything conclusive. I've got some fairly fast growing plants in this tank, and that contributes to the nitrates being absorbed, so it's hard to say where the actual nitrate reduction will be coming from. But my before amount of nitrate is about, I don't know, I'm going to call that about 30 parts per million. And since the water level was so low, I only pulled about 3 gallons out, and that emptied the tank by about halfway, it seemed. And so I put about 5 or 6 gallons back in, and that's what the after looks like. So when you're only starting at 30 parts per million and you pull 5 or 6 gallons out, or you do a 10 or 15, 20% water change, you're not going to get a huge reduction in nitrates because you're not really starting with a huge number to begin with. So if I'm starting at 30 parts per million, even if I did a full 30% or 33% reduction, we're still only taking it down to 20 parts per million. So that's why you didn't see a huge change in what the vial looked like. And again, those numbers aren't any kind of numbers I'm concerned about. It's more like just kind of taking the tank's temperature and keeping an eye on where things sit and what's going on. I don't think that level of nitrate in the tank is anything to be concerned about at all. I also don't think it's anything to be concerned about, but it is starting to get a little annoying, and that is all of the growth that I've got going on in this tank. I did sort of scrunch through that a little bit with my gravel vac as I was cleaning it, and you can see how it's got that sort of reddish look to it. My camera always really picks out that sort of reddish purple of that red cyanobacteria. So to my eye, that looks much more green. And when I shot video of this tank earlier, it looked a lot more green. Now that I've actually scrunched it around a little bit and moved it, I can see the red in it. And so there's very clearly both. That was my air pump hitting the bucket under my foot. I was wondering what that noise was for a minute. I don't know if that came through on camera or not, but if you heard that weird vibrating noise, that's what that was, my air pump on my water bucket. So with the cyanobacteria treatment, we're just doing a simple Chemiclean treatment. It works really well. Nothing in this tank is being threatened by the cyanobacteria or whatever. It's just starting to get thick enough that it's starting to look a little bit ugly. And here is a good example of what I'm talking about. That was very much, that whole rock had this sort of green growth on it that was really thick, and when I tried rubbing on it with my finger, it just felt sort of slippery and slimy, but it didn't come off in sheets like I normally think of cyanobacteria. So I wasn't really sure what to make of it. Now that I poured the water back in the tank, I pretty much poured it directly on that spot right there, and you can see how it disturbed it and got it all torn up. That was really green before I did the water pouring on it, and so the water blasting away all that green, it almost looked like green hair being parted, and I could see like the red scalp underneath. And eventually it sort of washed away the green, and we're left with that red cyanobacteria. So there is more of that in this tank than I initially assumed. I thought a lot of that was just algal growth, but I think a lot of it really is the cyanobacteria. So not a big deal, like I said. To treat it with the Chemiclean, all I need to do is throw an air stone in, and I use this stuff regularly enough that I just have a dedicated air stone and air pump. I just throw it in the tank, and then I put 2 of those little scoops in the tank, and I used to mix it in the water first and then pour the water into the tank, but this stuff dissolves so quickly and readily, I just sort of gently sprinkle it, right in where the water's flowing in, and it just mixes right into the tank. I buy the large size container of it because I use it fairly regularly, and believe me, that is the big size container. I think this is the 6-gram container versus the 2-gram container, and that lasts me for a long time. I use this maybe twice a year in a few of my tanks, and so I get quite a bit of use out of that one little bottle of the Chemiclean. So that's what we're doing. We treated the tank, we've got the air stone in there, fresh water change, and this is definitely going to take more than one treatment, I think. So over the next week or so, I'm probably going to be hitting this tank with the Chemiclean, giving it a few days, maybe doing a little water change, putting another dose of Chemiclean in there, and we're really going to beat this stuff back because it is on there really, really thick, in case you can't tell. So I think more than just one dose is going to be required to wipe that out. The other thing I wanted to point out here in this tank is, if you'll notice, some of my female guppies, especially my bigger female guppies there, if you can see through the sparklies on my phone, they don't have pregnancy spots anymore. This one there, she does now. We can actually see, well, again, if we can see through the reflection, if I go way back here, this guppy here, she has a pregnancy spot, and I think one of the smaller Endler hybrid females had a pregnancy spot on them. But my two big females that were just pregnant forever finally do not have the pregnancy spot anymore. And we can still see several of their babies swimming around. There was a bunch of them in here, but I've got that apistogramma in here now, and so we don't have so many baby guppies swimming around anymore. But a few of them have made it to being close to adult size, so we'll see how many actually make it. But I just find it interesting that when I look over there now, I see that female and she does not have that pregnancy spot. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're not familiar with that, live bearers will get a spot. If you can see her, see where that sort of orange coloration is down near her vent? That would be sort of a dark blackish area. Let's see, can you see that on her? See a dark area on her? Again, if you can see through my phone. Having an open top tank with a light like that, it just lights up everything around the tank, and it makes it really hard to get in front of it without glaring right back in the tank. Anyway, if you could see that dark spot on her, see, there's my other one. She's a small sort of Endler's hybrid, and she also, this one here, she also has that pregnancy spot on her. So if you've got a live bearer and you see that dark area, that dark spot, that's what it is. They're pregnant. If they're not dark in that area, then they're not pregnant. And again, it's interesting to see that female right there, this big yellow one, she does not have that dark spot anymore, and she's just had that forever. So that's about it. Just wanted to do a little bit of an update on this tank. We're going to do the Chemiclean treatment again, as I said, and see how that goes over the next week or so. So make sure you're subscribed, and you won't miss those updates or anything else I got going on. I got a few things on my mind. If I ever get around to it, I'm going to sit down in front of the camera, do a few discussion videos and that sort of thing. So that'll be coming up. So you want to be subscribed. You don't miss any of that or anything else. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, this is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank. And I will see you real soon in the next one.